Hey, this is Chuck Reagan from Hot Water Music, and you are listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Adam Turla, vocalist and guitar player of the band Murder by Death. Murder by Death are releasing their farewell LP called Egg and Dart. It comes out June 13th, and we talk to Adam all about the history of the band, the final LP, and we talked to Adam all about the history of Murder by Death, a lot of different struggles Adam has overcome throughout the band's history. And there's a lot of good discussion as well about the music industry and a lot of other things. It's a great conversation, and that's coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Death Wish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. Blood Horse, A Malign Star is out right now. It's limited to 250 copies on blood red vinyl. This features members of American Nightmare, The Red Chord, and All Pigs Must Die. The Dogs of Hope, a benefit for shelter animals, is out right now, and this comp features rare and unreleased tracks from Killswitch Engage, Dead Guy, Snapcase. I was just listening to the Snapcase track at band practice earlier today. Awesome. I think it's a cover of some band. I'm not sure, but listen, check it out. It also features Orange 9mm, Walter Schreifels, and more. Proceeds from the comp benefit a dog shelter in Alabama. I can't remember the name of it, but pick this thing up. It's for a good cause. There's a pre-fest show happening at the Brass Mug on Thursday, October 23rd, featuring Right on Time, Hey Thanks, Drought, Audio Karate, and Signals Midwest. That's a great show. Go check it out. The new LP from the Casket Lottery is up now for pre-order. It's called Feel the Teeth. I'm looking forward to this one. And pick up the Iodine Recordings Post-Hardcore Blend at Essex Coffee Roasters. I have personally tried this coffee, and I really enjoyed it. For more information, head to iodinerecordings.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can follow the label on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And say hello to our sponsor for the month of June, Mind Over Matter Records. Mind Over Matter Records is back to sponsor The New Scene for the month of June. Mind Over Matter Records is an independent record label founded by Austin Keane in 2009, and it's home to releases from a ton of bands you know and love: Zayo, The Juliana Theory, Evergreen Terrace, and more. Post-hardcore band Mission to Sleep have just released their LP A Spark or the End. Make sure you check out the record on streaming services, and you can order the LP now at mindovermatterrecords.com. A second pressing of the new self-titled record from Oriska just went up in 2 new colors. You can order direct from mindovermatterrecords.com, deathwishinc.com, and if you're in Europe, Deathwish Europe and Devil Dog Distro have the record in their stores. And my band, Memory Entry, just released our debut EP called Our World Is Going to Disappear. The Iodine variant of the record is sold out, but there's still a couple left at mindovermatterrecords.com. Make sure you grab one while supplies last. I think there is less than 10 left. We also have 2 new t-shirts to go along with the EP. And don't forget to check out the latest single from Ben. It's called Passions of Great Misfortune, and their debut LP will be coming out on Mind Over Matter Records. And there's a lot of other great music to check out at Mind Over Matter Records. Her Head's on Fire, Dad Hats, Shady Side, and tons more. For more information, head to mindovermatterrecords.com, and you can follow the label on Instagram at MOM Records. Okay, so check back in with me in segment 3. I'll tell you everything that's going on with me. We'll read some new Spotify comments and other things. But right now, we are going to speak to Adam Turla of Murder by Death. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Adam Turla. Adam, Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, Adam, it's great to have you here. You know, Murder by Death has done so much over the past 25 years, and I saw that you're putting out your final LP, Egg and Dart. So I had to get you on the show to talk about that and everything else, and I want to ask you about all of that and more. But first, Adam, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I think pretty good today. Yeah, I'm kind of just in this mode of getting ready for all of the crazy year that we have. This is like the last week of quiet I have before we launch into fulfilling our album pre-sales and start rehearsals and then go on this farewell tour. And it's just going to be 6 months of just crazy grind, which I think will be fulfilling. But I'm trying to just take it easy this week and, save a little energy and figure out how to do that over the next half a year.
Yeah. So you still get anxious, nervous, excited before all these things?
I would say more than ever. I think, well, there's just the world feels more complicated than it felt when I was, 19 playing in this band, hitting the road for the first time. Uh, we were just, I think there's just so much less pressure on the band because nobody cared. But now, I feel like certain responsibility when people are like flying in from all over the world to come to shows, or, they're spending good money on tickets and hotels or whatever. And so I want to do a good job. I want to make sure everyone gets a good show. But like I just have more responsibilities, and then it's like, will Canada let us in? And there's like all kinds of new considerations. Like I've been dealing with tariffs for the last few weeks, trying to figure out well, what products are, like we make almost all of our merchandise in the US because we try to do like, non-sweatshop t-shirts and that kind of stuff. And, but there are certain things that go into components that go into making merchandise that bands sell that we don't really know where they come from because of the global supply chain. So I'm like having to call all the different manufacturers I work with and be like, okay, but like, does the ink come from China, or where does the like cotton come from? And and some of the things I'm being told are wild. And so I think that like if you it's just been a crazy, crazy prep leading up to this year because there's just so much chaos. So I'm just trying to like, log in every morning and just be like, what can I handle today to make sure that everybody gets their merch, that we play the shows, that we, get into all the places we need to get into, transport everything to where it needs to be, and the logistics basically. That's been what I've been doing the last few months and
Hmm.
the next few.
It's a lot. Yeah. Do you handle the merch personally too?
Yeah, so I'm the one who works with like all the artists, and then I work with the manufacturers, and then I run the web store. I have a friend Jay who helps me out when we're on tour. He'll fill the orders, and then I fill all the orders for the Kickstarters, for the web stores. I personally ship like 10,000 packages a year, I think. And
Wow.
it's insane. I mean, like it's part of the reason I think like, and we'll get into this, but like sometimes I get a lot of credit from other bands or people, who are like, "Oh, you're so DIY. It's so cool that you do it all yourself." I'm like, "No, it's pretty rough and it's a lot." And I I think it's good, but I also think it's an indication of an industry that needs some major adjustments to make sure that people like I'm an example of like, okay, we made it work, but that's not how it should be. You shouldn't have to do all the things that I'm doing to make a, moderately successful band work.
Yeah, and that's stuff I just wouldn't want to do. Unless, okay, let's say the band was just big enough that I could live somewhat comfortably off of it. I would do everything you're doing, but I am not in that position. So I will happily have the distributors and the labels handle stuff and just make no money to have time back.
I think a lot of people make that choice, and maybe that's smart choice is that you sort of move it into more of a passion project type part of your life versus this is my job and I think as the sort of the whatever you call it, the front man or whatever, um, I feel this responsibility to my other five band members that like I need to get the most out of this that we can to make sure that everybody has an okay life and like you know it's that's on me to some extent for choosing to engage with such a uh, huge scope of work. I basically absorbed a lot of the jobs that middlemen would normally do, and just to make sure that everybody was doing all right. And it's part of the reason why we're like, okay, 25 years, we're good. I love the idea of like going out at our peak. I mean, I think there's something cool about that is like we're doing the best we've ever done. The last 10 years have been really strong for this band, and I think it's just a positive way to engage with it. And I mean, I've seen a few cynical comments like, "Oh, they'll be on a reunion tour in 3 years," and it's like my opinion on that. That's not my plan. I'm stopping because I want to, but my opinion on that is like let the bands do whatever they got to do. Like opportunities present themselves that never existed. It's such a hype-based industry that like I would love to see the people who are critical of those bands like if you got offered $100,000 to play a festival that you tried to get on for 20 years and then they finally want you and gave you a crazy money to reunite like you wouldn't do that? Like I don't know. Like I don't see a lot of people uh living the other side of that. The you know, it's
Exactly. Because, like, someone, a band will announce a reunion tour and everyone will be going crazy. And I'll be like, I've never even heard of this band. Like,
yeah,
what happened? Like, where did this currency come from? Like,
it's
it's
better
just
than like your whole thing. Like for some reason there's this reunion thing that is like it has a marketing power that is like bigger than your entire career of art. Like it's like I don't know what it is, but it's the internet, I guess. But like,
yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, I've seen some like that where there's a couple groups where I'll see the venues they're playing. I'm like, what? They're doing 2,000 caps or like, and it blows my mind. And then like I saw like the Refused got a lot of shit. They're on a tour, I think right now,
Hmm.
like farewell tour, and I saw like a lot of negativity around that, and I was like. I don't know, man. Like I don't really have anything bad to say about that. But um and they're playing like decent rooms for the most part, some pretty big ones in certain markets. But it's like that's a legendary band. Like if you get the chance to see it, it's pretty cool.
I just saw it, and it was at a very large venue here in Brooklyn, and
Oh, sure.
I loved it. But I don't know. So I talked to some people, and yeah, there was, I guess, a little negativity. It's always stuff on the internet, but like, and that stuff doesn't matter, but it can bother me still sometimes if if someone catches me on the wrong day or whatever.
Yeah.
But with Refused, I don't know. I was just happy to see it because I've never seen them before, and I talked to some people, and they were like, "Well, this guy's not in the band anymore," and I liked him, and but I'm not even aware of like member changes or anything, so I just
Yeah.
saw it and I was like, "This is cool. I never saw
Cool
them
show.
before."
Yeah, and I think like that's kind of it's entertainment in the end, It's like it's art too, and that part's huge to me, but it's like the goal is to put on a show and these are people who want to make a living creating art and performing art and mission accomplished. I what I don't like about I guess I should say is what I don't like about reunion tour type stuff is all the problems that come with our industry, which is like inflated ticket fees, all kinds of like sort of scammy corporate bullshit that has just pervaded our industry. And I think that's what people are maybe really mad at. But it's just sort of like it gets lumped on the band maybe. I mean, like I've never seen Refused. That's a show I would love to see. We played with International Noise Conspiracy like 20 years ago, and I mean, great performers and like, but anyway, it's just I think that was sometimes when we talk about performance and performers, um, all the things that come with our, I guess, our capitalist system get lumped in with it, and we just get mad at the capitalism or something. I don't know.
That's the great deceit of capitalism is no one ever gets mad at it. Like
Yeah.
people get mad at people. Or my favorite thing is when
Until now. Now we're mad at capitalism.
we're more mad now and we
Yeah,
should
some
be.
people are.
Or I just like when people see capitalism and the effects and they call it socialism, you know,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's like no, you see.
Well, yeah. Well, it's every politics is socialism. It's just who is the social program benefiting. I
Yeah,
mean, like that's just how it works. It's capitalism is socialism for the rich, But
I like that. Yes. Yes. That's
yeah, we're
so
about to get woke up in here. Like,
things are going to get crazy. We're going to get shut down. We're going to get raided, but we have to. We've got to get the information out to the people. No, I'm just kidding. Um, so yeah, so we have the final LP from Murder by Death, Egg and Dart coming out, which I've heard. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited for everybody else to hear it too.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing is you never know what's going to happen, right? Like this is the final LP. We plan to not tour nearly as much as we did anymore and just play shows once in a while after this, right? Is that the
Yeah,
plan?
so the plan is like the way I've been trying to frame it, because I knew that like if we ever do something else, like there will be some chatter or whatever. But what I've said is we need to stop touring. And so we do these cave shows every year in Tennessee. And this year's the eighth annual, I think. And the idea is that one weekend a year we'll have a meetup where we play like two, three shows in the cave. And it's a way that we can have like friends bands come open the shows so we can kind of stay part of our little community, see people perform for the people who want to see the show. And people are already used to traveling to the, middle of nowhere-ish to go to it. And so it's just not for some people that's just the show they were going to every year anyway. But we just didn't want to do like a cold turkey quit, because the reality is that I still want to play music with my friends in the band and I want to see them. And I know that if we don't have something to bring us together, time just has a way of passing and you just lose touch. And we wanted to keep doing that. We just don't want to we basically don't want to operate the machine anymore. And the machine has just taken it's just a complete focus. And I would like to explore focus on other things in my life. And Sarah, my wife, also would. And we've been the ones who've been doing it for 25 years. And so, yeah, as far as like last album, I've been saying last with a question mark because I have no clue. But the one thing I know for sure is that I don't want to say that we're going to continue to make music. I would love to explore things that we never had time for. Like, what if we tried scoring a movie or something? Like, if we could create some music that could open a door to something like that, that would be very much the kind of project that everyone in my group would be interested in exploring. So I'm hoping that by creating some time and some energy, that we could come up with some new things that could be like, oh, here's something else that the band is exploring that we've never done.
Yeah, I is that scary at all for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I think to some extent, obviously, like this has been my job for my whole life. And I am a little intimidated that, we're trying to set everybody up by working a ton this year. We're doing a lot of touring, putting out the record. We're basically trying to sell merchant tickets to save up some money for what we're calling our transition period. And my hope is that the people who want to continue gigging can like find a band that they can go out with playing, or that they can do a session work or whatever, and then the other people can settle in on whatever they want to do. And so the hope is that like a year from now, those wheels are rolling. So that's scary to me. I've talked to a couple friends who are musicians who were like saying things like, what about performing? What about like all that validation? I'm like, I'm good. I have had an extremely validated existence. Like I feel I feel the love. I understand. I understand that like the work we've done has had an effect on people that's positive, and I'm grateful to be a part of that. But I already know it. Like I already know that. Like there's nothing. I think it's something about like I don't know, like middle age or something where it's like no, like cool, that's good. Like we we did it. Like just accepting the fact that like I don't like do I need people cheering for me until I'm 80 years old? I don't think I do, you know? It's a nice thing. That feeling of being in a room where people are, it's kind of crazy.
It's the best.
It's a great feeling, and there's a catharsis to the end of every performance. I think that that will be the thing that I think I will miss the most is that when you hit the last note of a song, like if you do the last song of the encore and then you're done, but you're still amped up from the performance and you're smiling at your bandmates and you're smiling at the people in the audience and everybody's just like, we did it. We did this thing together. I think that is going to be the feeling that is going to be the most bittersweet to recall.
Right. Yeah, that I get the same feeling because it's like leading up to the show, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to do it. I feel like I'm going to explode.
Yep.
I'm too anxious. I'm going to mess something up. And then setting up and actually getting ready to do it, it's that, but times 10. But then you do it, and it's that feeling you're talking about where you're like, oh my God, we did it. It's done. And it's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, that
I've
I
played
miss,
thousands of shows and I still have that feeling that you're describing,
yeah,
that anxiety leading up to performance.
yeah. Even you.
Oh, I think so many people I talk to that I know are like are like me in that they still get somewhat anxious before a performance. Sometimes I'll text somebody and they're just cool as a cucumber, but I'm sure they have their nights, or like somebody's in the crowd. Like sometimes it's just like your mom's there, and so you're nervous because of that, or like I don't know, just like it could even be somebody that's not that you don't think is going to affect you, but the fact that they're there, it just gets you jittery. Performance is it's a strange animal because it makes us act different than we would normally.
Right. Big time. Yeah, reading about the upcoming last album and everything winding down, I was thinking about myself too, because it's all right, I've been doing this show for the past 5 years, right? Every single week, no matter what. It has to be a new episode every week. And it
Yeah.
was like an intense focus, but I'm winding down too, and I don't know what it's gonna look like. I don't know. I might do just 12 a year or just 24. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you, I don't know exactly what's gonna. Well,
Yeah.
I think you have a better idea of what you're doing. I don't know yet, but there is this fear, like, if I'm not doing this, what am I gonna do? But on the other side of that, I have to do something else.
Yeah. What am I not gonna do?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
because
the other side.
it's like you kind of like you mentioned, you have to make the time to see what else is going to happen, right? Because I mean, you've been doing this band for 25 years, so it just sounds like at this point you're ready for anything else to come along. Do you have you mentioned film scoring. Do you have an idea of other things you'd like to try? Like I imagine you wouldn't like start another band and do this all over
Oh
again.
no. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, even the film scoring, it's like I certainly don't want to dive right into something like that. I mean, it's more like I just want to be the first year, like 2026, the way I'm trying to think of that year is like there's still going to be so much work to do, like wrapping up the band and like all the business of that I have to do. Like I'm the business manager for the band. There's going to be all kinds of work around that. I'm still going to be dealing like we're still going to have a web store and like we have a Patreon that like I'm chronicling the history of the band like from the first show. Like we have the list of all our shows and like I go through every release and show that we have, and I just write about my memories and like I still want to do that because enough people have said you should keep doing that. So there's going to be, and that's just the band. I mean, like my wife and I and her brother have a restaurant in Louisville, so there's plenty of work around that. I mean, we're still going to be working full time when the band stops. We're just not working double full time anymore, and
Right.
so. Um, I'm going to be busy enough that's like I just don't want to add anything new. And so my hope is to explore. I literally am making like a dream board because one, I think it's kind of funny. It's just not something I would normally do. Right now, it's just a list on my phone. But I was telling my wife about it, and I was saying, no, I'm gonna cut pictures out of a magazine and do like teenager bedroom dream board. Like I just wanna think about like here are some things that I would like to start exploring when I have more time. And it's stuff like I want to like I do a lot of carpentry and like building, but it's like I would like to take a woodworking class, and learn how to make furniture or something. Just stuff like that's just been on your mind for a while. And I would like to I'm super into rock climbing, and so I want to spend as much time doing that as possible in general. But it's like I would also love to do a cross training thing with like a some sort of discipline like Tai Chi or something. Just something that would be cool to just integrate into my life once a week that I would never have time for now. And also like I mean we've been on and off the road for the majority of my life. I'm 43 right now, I'll be 44 in the summer, and we've been on the road since 2001. So like most of my life has been very disjointed with lots of travel or recovery from travel. And so I don't have a lot of like ritual or just normalcy. And that's the thing that I think like just that is an exploration and an adventure for me is like, what's it like if I go to the same thing every Monday for a while? Like, okay, that sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, I like that because I'm rigid scheduling like on Monday I eat this, on Wednesday I eat this, on Sunday I go here. It's
You
rigid
have that
scheduling
already.
like that. So I'm on the flip side of that. I wasted a lot of time, and now I'm in a band that I would like to do some things with, and I'm the
Yeah,
same age as you. I'm 43. So
yeah.
it was like kind of rigid. I don't want to say doing nothing, but not doing enough. But now at this age, I'm intensely focused, and I would like to try to do some stuff with the
I'm gonna
band.
put your
But
energy into that.
yeah, but I hear you. Like I want to make time for other things. Like I don't want to eat takeout every day. I don't want to sit in front of these computers 14 hours a day, right? I would like to go outside some more. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. You have to make the time to see what's going to happen, right? Also, I think that visualization stuff works.
I
I
think so too.
yeah, I think because I do my own version of it, and I've heard other people talk about their versions of it. I think if you think about it and put yourself in the mindset, like you can make it a reality.
I have I think one of the things that like I was lucky to sort of just have even as a kid was that I am, I've always been like a planner, albeit like a loose and flexible planner. But I always am thinking about like the construction of something and how to get to somewhere. And so I think that's helped with the band a lot is like big picture thinking essentially. And so like the details can be moved around, but the goal, like if you're a big picture thinker and you're a person who finishes with projects you start, like you are fortunate to have that sort of just inclination because you end up actually doing stuff. And
Hmm.
so I feel like I have done a lot of stuff because I'll sit down and be like, well, what would it take to make this happen? And it's not like I'm necessarily working my ass off on it, but it's like just some foresight and like be like, well, if I do this, then I have to do this, this, and this. And I make lists. Like that's been a really good, as far as like dream board visualization. I'm basically just thinking, what would it really take to do something? And then you just execute it. And like for me right now, it's just funny because the plan is remove the thing that is like, probably an average of 40 hours a week. Um, and naturally something will pepper in and fill the space that I would like to. Because I mean, even like, here's a way that expresses what I'm trying to say is that like pre-social media for the band. I think this is a thing that blows my mind is that I went back and I looked and the band got Facebook in I think it was like 2012 or something, 2013 maybe even actually. It wasn't that long ago, but like pre that, we would just post one post on our website when we had a whole tour, like a 50 show tour. And we'd be like, cool, there it is. There's the tour. And that was all the work we would do to promote that tour.
That's
And
it in
I mean,
2012, not even Instagram or anything.
that's when we got it. Like,
Ugh.
like we were getting, or maybe Facebook, we got a little, I'm trying to remember the years, but
Well,
like,
you know what? Facebook really took off in 2008.
we were late to it.
Yeah, and but it wasn't like it wasn't such a destination for music yet, and
Yeah.
Instagram certainly not yet in
Yeah.
2012.
I don't think we got Instagram until like 15 or something. But like anyway, the point is it's not been that long. And the majority of this band's existence was either no social media or like MySpace, which was a pretty actually decent format for bands.
Was it,
And
when MySpace went away, that was like the spot for bands. It was such a good
it hurt
setup.
us for sure. We used to
Yeah.
have like I remember we would premiere a song just like on our MySpace and get like 100,000 listens the first day. I mean, there
Whoa.
was a very active audience of people, and then to have those followers just go away, and then you try to pick them up and get them on Facebook or whatever. But the point is that we were posting so rarely. I mean, it really was just like every once in a while we post like a joke image or something silly to, just to be a goof. But then it was like once the tour, new song out, whatever. Like it just I wasn't working every day trying to learn how freaking Meta has changed their ad system or like, how their targeting works now or, like gotta have content every day and you gotta post at the same time or like whatever, all this garbage. It's like just having less of that in my life is a net positive. It's like
Yeah.
I
Yeah. If I didn't have oh, I hope if I didn't have this podcast or a band, I don't think I would go on social media a lot, or at least I hope I wouldn't, because that stuff you're talking about, like target, post date, and add this, I just don't want to. I don't want to think about it.
It's a lot. And I think like these tools have been good for creative industries because there are ways to reach more people. There is a way to, rather than just putting it out into the ether completely, there, if you can get the people who enjoy the stuff that you're making to follow you, you at least have a possible way to message them. I really do value that, and it's really helped our band a lot. But it's also just like it's it's a lot, and it kind of just falls on the band to do it. Someone in the band needs to have a vision for their social media or their whatever, just their messaging essentially. And I think what it's done, unfortunately, is that it's created more of like brands than I think I would like to see in the industry. Um, and I do pine for the feeling to some extent of being just like a scrappy young band that's like showing up. Like I loved opening gigs. I mean, it's still honestly, I still prefer in a lot of ways to just go in front of an audience, no pressure, and try to win them over. It's a joy. I mean, like it is, I mean, it can be a little soul crushing too. But there's something about just like they're not here to see us. They don't give a fuck. Maybe we'll win a few over. It's just the low stakes of it. There's something so fun about that. Like I remember going out when we were like only opening shows, like 2002 to like 2005, basically. We probably opened 500, 600 gigs in that time. And we were playing with all kinds of stuff. Anything from like folk group kind of stuff to metal to like goth or emo or whatever was big at the time. And lots of like indie and like it was the interesting thing to me was that there was no correct audience. When you're opening, at least for our band, we were able to go and have good gigs kind of in any scenario. where, I mean, it was modest. Like back in the day, like you're getting paid $150 or something to play a show, halfway around the country. But I don't know. It was working for what we were doing at the time, and I think there was something about the simplicity, like the no social media, the just get in the van, drive to the gig, like it's gonna be what it's gonna be. I think it made us flexible, and it made us sort of I guess just learn to like take a small win.
Yeah. How did you I was actually on a tour you were on. What was it? 2003. It was Murder by Death, Every Time I Die,
Oh hell yeah.
Thursday, and This Day Forward. I,
Yep.
I was out with This Day Forward. Yeah,
You
and
were out with those guys. Oh, crazy.
yeah,
So we've
yeah.
definitely met.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a long time ago, I was selling merch for them on that tour, and I just remember, I always remembered your band because it was different, right? It was not Every Time I Die. It was not Thursday, which was a big sound at the time. It
Yeah.
was just this different thing, and I always remembered that. How did you feel at that time playing
I
those
love
kinds
that
of
tour.
shows?
That was a great tour. So it was that we maybe did. So that was the best tour we had ever done for sure up to that point.
Yeah.
Thursday taking us out was like an enormous boost to our career, and I credit that tour specifically as I think sort of our reason for sort of succeeding. Whatever success we have, I think that it's because Jeff pushed for us and fought for us and put us on that tour. Jeff Rickley and from Thursday, and so we went out for about a month, and we were playing mostly small cities, like kind of like B and C markets.
I remember it was like a lot of Midwest stuff.
So stuff like Lancaster, Pennsylvania is where the tour started, and like playing like green or no there was there was no like Brooklyn, or I guess Brooklyn wasn't even a thing in 2003 yet, not really.
Yeah.
It was like a year or two later. But yeah, it was just small cities. Like we played like Lincoln, Nebraska and Little Rock, Arkansas, but every single show was packed with screaming teenagers who were, not much younger than we were. And yeah, that bill for part of the bill, every time I jumped on for like I think like 5 or 6 shows, and they opened up actually, which is kind of wild because I remember we had to follow them, and it was like whoa, and they were heavy compared to what we were doing.
Oh yeah.
And but I actually really liked those guys, and they were some of the funniest people I'd ever met. And I just remember like goofing in the hallway with them, and then yeah, the This Day Forward guys, we became tight with for sure. And then the Thursday guys we had already known, but like that tour was hugely instrumental because we back in the day we were selling CDs, and we were selling like 100 CDs a night. I mean, it
Mm.
was just like putting music out there. We just kept having to order more, and it was just putting music in people's hands. And then that was just so instrumental in our essentially like building our hype, I guess, is all it was. We were just out there just plugging away. I mean, I think by the time we did that tour, I could look at our tour database, but like we had already played like I'm gonna say 250 shows before we got that tour, and like nothing felt like it was happening. And then that tour happened, and it was like it's on. And for what it's worth, it wasn't on. It was just better. Like we were still tiny. Like in the years following that, it's like it was the most incremental thing. But I think if we hadn't had that tour, it would have just been game over for the band.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have made it, I don't think.
Yeah.
We needed a win, and we needed somebody to take a chance on us like that, and then we needed it to work.
Yeah,
Um,
because I've heard you say in interviews like the lifeline or the experience of the band, it was like a slow and steady curve just up, right? The whole
yeah,
time.
I think that's true, but I think that if we hadn't gotten one taste like we got with that tour, that was extremely validating to go out there and just like crush at the merch table every night. I mean, we we were selling a lot of stuff. And granted, it was not very much money because it was like $10 CDs. It's like, cool, we made $1,000. Like, it was good, but it's like we were still living, below the poverty line. We're on the road 300 days a year, making like $20,000 a year or something. It was not great, but it was. We felt like we were investing, in our future, and and we were, because each year got a little bit better, and we were able to figure out a way to make it work. But yeah, that tour is hugely instrumental.
Yeah. Yeah, I always remembered you guys from that tour. You went on to sign with ADA Distro, right? That's like a Warner Brothers, they
Yeah.
get distributed by them or something?
So yeah, it was a really complicated but interesting deal they had, that it was like the three more like bands that kind of like made it out of that system were us, Lucero, and Clap Your Hands Say Yeah, I think was on there too. And it was basically bands that Warner Brothers was interested in but didn't want to just like push into the major label system. So they had a thing called East West, which was the division that had a direct distro deal with ADA distribution, and you would create your own label, and then they would essentially fund it and have certain staff that would work towards promoting that album, and then you would independently hire like a publicist or whatever, and the people that you wanted to work the record. And so we did that for our 2006 album in Bocca Al Lupo, because basically in 2005, like we that was our moment where we actually had some like industry buzz. We had about a year of excitement from the industry. And we uh we were getting a lot of offers. We probably got, maybe 20 record deal offers, but none of them seemed like the right fit for us, because at the time emo was really big, but we weren't an emo band, and like we were too dark, and the band name was really throwing off the indie world, and we were kind of trying to move away from indie. We basically started as an indie band, got on a couple emo tours, and then we're like, yeah, we don't know where we fit in. And the industry didn't either. And so we were trying to find like the right label of somebody that like understood us, and it just wasn't happening. So we're like, well, let's just go on our own and do this deal. And Lucero's doing it, so we know those guys. Um, if it's good enough for them, they were kind of a couple years older than us and a couple years ahead of us in their career. And so we were following their lead a little bit. And the album came out and it did okay. It was I mean, we were pleased with, we had very low expectations for ourselves, I think. But it increased our audience a bit. We actually got, this is the one time we got a record advance where we personally took some money. It wasn't that much, but it was something. And you know, we tried to make it work, and we just hit the road and we grinded out 2006. And then basically we had been told for years by so many people like, oh, you guys are gonna be like a cult band. Everybody's gonna like, everybody's gonna love you. You're not gonna make it big. You're not gonna be a radio, blah, 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 but you are gonna have a great career. And we're like, cool, cool. When's that happening? I'm like, I can't pay my rent. I can't pay my rent. And then, yeah, because we're working, full time. We couldn't work other jobs because we've invested everything into being on the road. And then we got to a point at the end of that year, 2006, when that came out, where the team that had worked hard to help us, our management team, we basically had to let them go because we just couldn't afford to pay them anymore. And that's basically a huge changing point for our career, which was I basically absorbed like 5 jobs. And that's when I started doing managing the band. Uh, I had already been, I guess, business managing the band, but I started taking it way more seriously because we realized we were in debt. We were like $75,000 in debt because we had we're waiting for our payoff. We were waiting like when this record comes out, and then the royalties and the blah blah. And then, but at the same time, the like 2006 is basically like if the record industry wasn't completely obliterated by file sharing and whatever, like that was the year that we all realized, oh no, the jig is up. Like 2006, 7 maybe, where it's like, oh, we're not going to make money off of albums anymore. And so I took over our mail order, started doing all the mail order myself. I'm basically just having to figure out how do I make back all this money we owe. Um, and we just streamlined. And then we went out in 2007 and we played, I think, 78 shows opening for Reverend Horton Heat because they just offered us a ton of dates. And it was like a lot of like smaller towns and like all over Canada. And we basically were like, we just need gigs. We just need volume. And we basically knocked out our debt and then tried to regroup and be like, what the hell are we gonna do? Like, so it was a crazy time for us because we've had so many of these maybe it's over moments. And then we would like do something and it would like give it just enough of a bump to give you some optimism and keep going. And eventually, man, it like I will say that it actually did get better eventually. And like and I when I look at our career, I'm like, I can't believe how well it's gone. Like with my objective like adult brain, I'm like, I can't believe like it's a miracle. Like when I was a
Yeah,
kid,
I
the
mean,
expectations were very low. Like I was a scene kid. I was like at all the shows for like punk and indie shows, like growing up. And the bands I was used to seeing were playing for so few people. And even the bands that like later got big that I saw, I think about it sometimes like, man, like, there were 100 people at that show in Detroit. Like that was not a I thought that band was like the coolest thing on the planet at the time, and there were like 100 people there.
yeah. Yeah, what were your expectations like when you were younger? Were they tempered? Because like when I was young, I was like wacky. I wasn't even doing enough work or I don't know. I just didn't know what I was doing, but I wanted to be in a band and I wanted it to be big and I wanted validation, but I wasn't actually doing any work. Like, but I don't think I realized that. So now at age 43, I'm like, "Oh, these are all the things you have to do." So are there things I want to happen? Yes, but my expectations are very realistic because I'm 43 and I know what's going on. So when you're younger and you're watching contemporaries do different things and you're out there grinding, like what are your feelings about it?
I love that you said that you reflected on that because I think that young brain can be really like deceptive. I guess it's entitlement what you're describing, and
Yep.
like I've certainly had entitlement as well. I think a lot of us do at that age, and um, I definitely think that my entitlement was more like I wanted more credit for how what we were doing was different and creative than we got.
Hmm.
Like that was my chip on my shoulder. Like I think at the time, I'm like, I wrote a like fantasy rock opera at 20 years old, like with Who'll Survive. Like that's creative at the very least. Like give me something. Like I think that was where my head was at, was like, this is really out there and different. Like at least give me some like artsy fartsy reviews or something. I don't need to be rich. Like, but we didn't really get covered a lot back then, and we didn't have a ton of press. And so I think as far as for me, I was working my ass off. So I'm a first generation. My mom immigrated from Italy, and like her family stories are of like poverty to work your ass off and succeed in America, the classic 1950s American story. And so that work ethic has been just like punched into me my whole life, for better or worse. I think I've figured it out to be positive, but and so like I was being told, and I knew that like I was just gonna have to grind it out and like, make it like do everything I could to make it work. And so, I'm like booking the band for, I probably booked the band for like, we had some help here and there in the early days, but like I was booking most of the gigs for a long time. And, just there's that site, Book Your Own Fucking Life, and like just like reaching out to strangers, can I play at your house?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And so anyway, that period, I think about just the attitude, what my expectations were extremely low. Because everybody that I loved, like if I go back to like who was I going to see when we were just playing our first shows, I was going to see bands like, there was a band called Mile Marker out of Chicago that I loved, and like the Black Heart Procession. And like I would go see At the Drive-In, like open a gig for and get paid like $50 or something. And like it was they were not big shows. That was like, even like, speaking about the drive-in, I saw them like open up for the Get Up Kids. And there's like 100, 200 people at those shows, and the Get Up Kids were like huge in my mind. They were the
Hmm.
mainstream act. And so my expectations were not even to do as well as that. They were very limited. On the flip side, we played dates with our label mates, My Chemical Romance, in 2002 or even 2001. I think we played together. Um, we maybe played, I'm gonna say 25 shows together. And we would play little gigs with them in New Jersey when they were just getting started. I remember one gig there was 4 people at. It was a botched festival essentially at a skate park, and there was a couple at a skate park. But they, on the other hand, they would say things like, "I want to be the biggest band in the world," and I'd be like, "Whoa!" Like, and I reflect on that every once in a while now. I'm just like, "Oh, they did it! Like, they actually did it," and it blows my mind reflecting on that, because you talk about like a vision board. Like, I mean, they knew what they wanted. Like, I didn't know what I wanted. I just didn't have. That's the era. I wanted to be out in the scene, and I wanted to be participating, and I wanted to be part of the community of independent music. But I did not have really an aspiration for my career. That was not something I was thinking about. And I reflect on them having that interest and that knowledge of themselves, and then they just delivered it. And I think it says a lot to me about like, I was a firsthand experience. I remember them saying stuff like that. Um, and it's like, good for you. I mean, way to see it through. Like, it's incredible. I'm sure that there are more people that don't make it happen, that want that or think they want it. But I
That's
was,
interesting. Yeah, to hear them say that and for it to actually happen, right? Because
it
I
blows
feel
my
like
mind.
people say that a lot and it doesn't happen. But with My Chemical Romance specifically, I've mentioned this before on the show, but there's this old video of them playing, I think Brooklyn, no, Fireside Bowl in Chicago,
Yeah.
that I've seen on YouTube, and it's just crazy how things happen because they look and sound like any other band that we would have gone to see at that time, right? Like and I've watched the video and I'm like, wow, and they became like the biggest band in the world. So you just never know how things are going to shake out.
We might have played that show. I'll have to check my database, because I definitely played a lot of shows at the Fireside Bowl back in the day, and that seems like where we would have played with them on the tour we did together.
Yeah.
Like, I can remember playing like, I remember like the Milwaukee show and the Detroit show of that tour, and Indianapolis, but I'm like, I can't quite remember the Chicago one. But yeah, I mean, they yeah, I think they're a great example of like manifestation, I guess. And they just had a lot of ambition, and that's just not, I bring them up only because it was, it's fascinating to me to look back on and say, wow, look at that. Good, like, way to know what you want and execute it. Like, I just wanted to make art, like for a living. And I'm sure I was like, I remember having these conversations where, um, like I remember like hanging out with other bands at that time. And if the band was like more successful than us, I remember talking to like John K. Sampson from like the Weaker Thans or Laura Jane Grace from Against Me and being like, so how do you get like this? Just wanting like the formula to be like, I feel like we're so close, but we can't like, because we were honestly just so broke and I was just like, how do I make it that we are going to be okay? And that was what I was really asking. And like without quitting and just, you know, and I remember like trying to get, at one point I thought it was the label or, it's that young brain where it's like, someone's going to hand it to me. I just need to meet the right person who's going to hand it to me. Uh, and the answer was, of course, figure it out for yourself and come up with a solution. But none of us knew how to articulate that really. And it was a silly question to ask.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. I think yeah, I don't know what I thought when I was young. I remember I re- I remember being young and I was like I didn't realize like all the work you have to do, right? Like you have to build it from the ground up. I think I was so entitled. I thought like, oh, the right situation is going to come along and I'll be asked to join like this band that's already big or
Which
or
does happen too, though. It
yeah,
happens all the time. I can't tell you how many people I know that have actually like had something like that happen.
yeah.
Well, I mean, like I had dinner. There's a guy who was on Eyeball Records. His band was called The Actual, and
Hmm.
we would play like basements and stuff together. Back in the day, I had lunch with him when we were making our album in LA. He's been the guitar player for Taylor Swift for 8 years. Like
Oh,
he just did a tryout, and he was like, ah, yeah, like whatever, not gonna get it. And then what do you know? And he said he did tryouts for bands. He was like, I'm a shoe-in for this band, and then didn't get it. Like there is an element of chance and randomness that I think is extraordinary. When I talk to like more like people who have gone the session route, like they'll go from like I mean, there's a guy I know he was the bass player in the opening band on a tour we did maybe like 15 years ago. And it was like the first of three. And he's now the music director for like Bjork and like he'll play bass and also organize all the other musicians for like major stars like Bjork, Marina, Dua Lipa, like it's and he's just like crushing it, doing this like high scale, like the highest scale performance. He was at Coachella last week or whatever. And
yeah.
um and I think that like that's the thing that I actually love about this industry is how many directions it can go.
Hmm.
I mean, you can, and it's not always like that the person who's the best player is the one who gets rocketed to success. It's not, it's often the hardest workers. I think like people who are just willing to put their name in the hat over and over and over again and fail and fail and fail until they succeed.
Right.
Like this is the part of my career that I'm kind of like fascinated in is all my friends that I've met over the years through this industry, like what are they doing next? And like how many of them are continuing in music or art of any kind? And in what format are they continuing? You know?
Yeah, that's another thing I like about this show is just catching up with people and figuring out what people are doing, where they went, like you.
Yeah, and I mean I think it's just this is our lives. It's like I think as artists, like you you are I remember like consigning to the idea of like poverty when I decided like I mean I literally dropped out of college to go
Hmm.
on tour for the first
Same.
time.
Yeah.
And I was doing well in school and I thought that maybe I was going to be like a college professor or something. I was thinking I was doing Buddhist studies and Taoism and in English and then this just kind of happened and I thought, man, I really do enjoy being creative and kind of like just flushing out a vision of my own little universe. And I think that it's been a great experience and it's taught me so much about just sort of cooperation. I think that's one of the things I talk about like with Sarah all the time, where being in a band and like sitting in a van with, 4 to 8 other people or whatever forces you to uh, think about others in a way that is really valuable. You don't want to be too in the way, but you also want to be like, if the van breaks down, like somebody's got to change the tire. Somebody, helps get all the pieces out. Somebody gets on the horn with AAA if it's a bigger problem. And then somebody's calling the venue to let them know you're going to be late. Like you really, you work as a micro community essentially, and you figure it out. And I think the best organizations, the best groups have a basically there's no distinction between like whatever the drummer and the sound person and the singer, like everybody, it's all hands on deck
Yeah.
is what we always say. And like whenever we hire crew for a tour, we say, hey, just like FYI, like everybody does everything, everybody's doing more than their basic job. Like our I'm doing all the logistics and stuff that I do and hotels and blah, 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 travel. Our bass player is stage managing the show. Our violinist is also the merch coordinator, but I also help with the merch. And then like we just expect you, like if something needs to get done, just jump in. Like don't, it's not, we're not gonna push you specifically to work harder than anyone in the band, but just be cool and we're good. And it's just this idea of like communality that is, I think, you don't see it you don't see it in a lot of other work environments to the extent that you can, like a well-organized tour can be a really cool space.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. If it's like, oh, the singer is the singer and he's sequestered, or
Yeah.
he, she, whatever, they are sequestered away and they don't do anything. And it just breeds like a weird vibe. And then if people get egos, the whole thing falls
I
apart.
I've heard so many stories of like yeah, like the person that like you spend a month on the road opening for some band and you're never allowed to look them in the eye or something. Like that stuff that blows my mind. And it's not that I think that like anybody is entitled to access to another human being, but it's just like you could just be like, well, I gotta go. Like if you run into somebody in the hallway and you exchange a pleasantry, you could just be like, if you don't want to talk to them, just leave. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like the rules uh of that sort of like fame trap. Uh, it just sounds like you're digging yourself deeper into a place of misery.
Exactly. It's not going to lead anywhere good.
Yeah.
So, Egg and Dart, the LP. When did you know? When did you know like, okay, we have to wind this thing down and this record is going to be the last one?
Yeah, so we started talking about this during the pandemic, about winding down touring, and it kind of came out of like, I think we have to do this. And Sarah, it was just Sarah and I talking about it, and I think she was like feeling me out on it, and we were trying to figure out, well, how can we make it work? And so we came up with the idea of like, okay, we're gonna do 5 years of touring. That's what we're committing to. It's just, and then we're like, but we'll continue doing or either the Stanley Hotel shows or the cave shows, and it ended up being the cave shows. And we didn't know about albums even. We weren't really sure because we knew we wanted to make an album like sooner. So we made Spellbound, which was such a joy to make. We had so much fun with the band on that one. And it was like coming out of the pandemic, just such a healing process to be doing something creative with other people after being isolated. And then we kind of decided like, yeah, we want to make another one. We had such a good time recording it and writing it that we wanted to do another one. And then we kind of realized a couple, maybe 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I guess this is kind of like it. And we sort of realized that we had to say something and that we had to address the fact that we were announcing a farewell tour. And then we kind of combined with the idea went through many permutations, but we combined the idea of let's just do a farewell tour that's also the album release tour and just be like, goodbye. Like this is our package of goodbye. So then I started writing songs that are basically all goodbyes. And the subject matter ranges from there's like fantasy. There's the last song on the album is one of my favorites called Black Velvet Cloak. And I was describing it as like some Frodo shit. It's kind of got some like I don't know, fantasy elements to it. But then there's like a song that's like there's more heartfelt songs about love or death. And then there's a song about like addiction and is trying to say goodbye to something like that. And so I just started writing and I wrote about 20 something songs and I scrapped probably 5 or 6 entirely. 11 made it to the record and then we recorded 5 more of the ones that were like just so close to making it but didn't. And we put those on just like a bonus songs release. That's just if people who want to buy that can hear it. But it's all around that theme. All of those, it's all about like that concept of letting something go, one way or the other. And so it's a very emotional record. And it's definitely my most personal Murder by Death album for sure. Which I tend to use fantasy combined with linked life experiences and metaphor to blur the lines, and that's been my like general writing approach. This album, I think I wore my heart on my sleeve a little more. And there's songs that we released a song. I'm not going to call it a single because it's not the single, but like we released a song called Wandering. That's just my song to touring and to the audience to just say like, this is what I'm thinking about. And that's a pretty rare approach for me to get in front of my podium like that.
Yeah. So, you talked about your process for writing. That's sort of what I do these days too. I'm less, I'm less like just put it all out there, super personal. I like to put a little more metaphor and some, I guess, some degree of fantasy stuff on top of that too. So, is that the way you are? Like, do you like to protect yourself somewhat and put some fantasy in front
I
of it?
think that's part of it. I also think that like fantasy as a genre in general, whether you're talking about like sci-fi or wizards and shit, like I think that it is it's a skin that is it just has always appealed to me since I was a kid. Like I
Mhm.
was always into like Dungeons and Dragons and shit, and like just the idea of creating it's the idea of a persona, but like you're telling them it's a persona. I think the music world suffers from uh, this sort of like almost like a lying kind of persona where people present themselves as a character that is their performer, but then also present the idea that that is the real them. And I think that that's the trap that I realized. I'm going to say maybe like I remember like 2005 watching live acts and watching people and being like, this is a persona. Like I remember seeing through the veneer and watching acts and being like, this feels unauthentic to me. And it's because this person is pretending. And I think whether whether I had it right or not, I mean, I don't know these. That's just what I felt about some of these performers. And I would notice that when I thought someone was really pouring their heart out, that I felt different about the performance and the art. And so I tr basically tried to find my way to engage with language and performance in a way that felt honest to me. One of the ways that I did that mattered for me was that I try not to repeat things on stage with the banter in between songs. We've played thousands of shows. It's hard to do that. Most people just do a spiel. I really, really try to avoid it unless there's something that like needs to be said, each night. It really throws me because it makes the job a lot harder. Uh, and I get why people do it, but I was like, no, I just want to go up there and be myself, and I don't want to have to memorize some speech. and I'm already memorizing the songs. There needs to be something organic about each night. And so like it's a reason I don't use in-ears. I want to hear what the crowd is saying. I mean, I don't want them disrupting the show, but like there have been some of my favorite moments ever in touring is a funny exchange where somebody says something from the crowd and then I make a joke and then somebody like where there's just this like repartee and involvement. I mean, that's what live music is about. And it's that's why it's different than the record. And I think that when you're playing in a band that's like our size, where you're playing like, you know, 200 to 1,200 people, you can actually participate with the people in the room in a way that like a big shell or stadium show can't. And I think that I've seen more and more shows, especially in the last 10 years, who are performing as if they're playing in an arena, just doing this perfect show every night, that is just the same thing over and over and over again. And it's like, I get it. That's the theater approach. That's like you're going, it's like as if you're an actor or something. But I'm a musician. I'm not an actor. It's like I prefer that blurred. Uh, I would rather find. I had to find my way to integrate fantasy and persona in, and I decided it would be through characters and songs, through narrative shifts where it's like it's not always me singing to you, it's like I use a lot of different voices, and sometimes I'll do a lot of like untrustworthy narrator type songs. And I just remembered an early one more thing on that. I remembered an early writing exercise that I was doing when I was in college. And when I was writing Who Will Survive, there was I realized that the way that I wanted to write was to say fantastical things as if that was just true. It's like it's not a simile, it's not a metaphor. Like in the one of the early lines of Who Will Survive is like, well, the devil's bleeding crude oil from a hole in his chest, and it's hanging on the bedpan. And basically, that's literally happening in the song. And it's like, so I wrote a song about, well, what happens when, like, okay, there's oil dripping in a bedpan. So now all these businessmen are like, I picture all these businessmen trying to get the oil so they can make money off of it. And it's like, it's the idea of just taking fantasy and then pushing it into like fantasy is reality. And I used the Western motif for that album because the West is the big myth that we tell ourselves in America. It's like the cowboy. It's like, I mean, like we have created this post, we've created a alternate history of the West and America that we tell ourselves of this rugged individualism. And like when the real story is quite different. And so I thought like, well, what better? Nobody was doing like Western or country type stuff in the scene when we started doing that stuff. And I was like, well, nobody's using this, which makes it kind of fun and exotic or something. And two, there's nothing more fantasy in America than the story of the West.
Right. Right. Did you ever you mentioned, oh, I wanted credit because in a review or something because we were doing something different, right? Like did you ever feel like you got that artistic validation?
From the fans for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of wonderful letters and emails and whatever comments, like so many people gave me that for sure. Yes. Absolutely. I think that I think it's just more than just that, like it took me a while to realize. I think I've been thinking about like music as an art form, and our society does not treat it that way. Um, I've tried to write songs that I was treating in the way that like if you go to an art gallery and you read like the description of the piece, like that's how I was thinking about the songs, like in that kind of tone. Or like if you go see a really good film and you see like people discussing like all the hidden stuff and like what does this mean? What does that mean? Symbolism, etc. I was putting in little Easter eggs and stuff, and that I thought, yeah, like ear ticklers, basically, that I thought would get caught and discussed by media, deeper readings, exciting interpretations that might not have even been intended by me, but were found by the listener. And I assumed that there was an industry that talked about music the way that we talk about those other art forms. And I didn't see that. And it wasn't just for us. As I read more and more media about my friends' bands or the band we're on tour with, I felt like I didn't see it it just wasn't treated, it wasn't handled the same way as those other industries. And it was more commoditized. Like music is more commoditized than I think those industries. And so we're sort of celebrated for our success more than we're celebrated for our creation. And so, I had to just kind of wake up and be like, oh, okay, that is not the place that you get that kind of validation. You get it from the listeners who send you questions like, what did you mean when you said this or whatever? And it's like, oh, well, thank you for asking, like, because that was one of the things that I was picturing, I think when I was 20 years old writing this original lyrics and stuff, I was picturing myself in like Paris 1920s in a bar, like talking with all these other artists about craft. Like, oh, like, now why did you choose to go into 5/4 for just that one section or why? And like those conversations don't really happen that much, I feel like, in music. For some reason, that's not what we talk about. I think because musicians are supposed to be really cool, and maybe it's like the don't want to show how the trick is done.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people just don't want to. I notice a lot of people don't want to, I don't know, like they want to act like they don't have influences, or they don't want to like give someone too much credit, and I
I
wouldn't say it's
completely agree.
most people or that I encounter or whatever, but there is some of that.
Yeah, I think, well, I was on a podcast for the guy actually who recorded our first album is like a financial advisor now, and he was doing a podcast called uh, the Thing We Don't Talk About. And it's basically about how musicians don't talk about money. And he was saying that, and I completely agree with him, that basically people in the music industry are sort of trained to act as if they don't know about how the money works or how the business works, or they pretend that they don't. And I was saying, yeah, I think that's actually like a really toxic part of our industry because I specifically tried to offer just my ear to bands that are trying to, like, I do all kinds of free consultations with bands that, like, people I know that will be like, hey, will you tell me how to do this facet of the business side or the industry? And it's like, I needed help for many years that I didn't know where to get it. And I think my thesis is we need to talk to each other about that stuff, even if it's a little gauche, so that we understand how to survive in an industry that has eliminated so many of our sources of revenue. I mean, in a Spotify world where they are making an absolute killing and we're making almost nothing, and they're saying that like content is free and all these, it's like for you because you stole it, because you literally crushed the, like, in what other industry are you allowed to go to the marketplace, completely destroy the manufacturing component, and say, no, I've got it all here for free. Like, or for $10 a month, you can get all of it. And it's like, if it's like our monopoly laws for something like that. I mean, there's also all these years that there was no regulation where like the majority of our like listening, the period that we were being streamed online, the majority of our career, we never got royalties on because it was either the Napster era, the MySpace era, before whatever that lawsuit was in like 2014 or 2015, when they actually had to start paying digital royalties. I mean, the majority of my career, we've never been paid for music because there was no very limited record sales compared to streams or downloads. And so it's like there's just these completely missing components of our industry that we need to be talking about. We need to figure out how to work together to, I mean, like I talk to people who are working in like Hollywood, like script writers, whenever they talk about their like unions or their just like their rights, I'm like, I don't have any rights. Like I literally, as a musician, we have nothing.
Zero.
There's no guarantee. I couldn't even get unemployment during the pandemic for all our canceled shows. They wouldn't put me on unemployment because basically artists, none of us could, because the way artists are categorized as like essentially non-workers, like either you're a 1099 worker or you're the owner of the company. But if you don't have a payroll, you know,
Mm,
you're not getting unemployment. So
right.
it's just like, it's just, it blows my mind. We don't have anything that protects us, so we need to work together to figure out a way to meet our basic needs as creative people.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to subvert the system, so I'll have open conversations about that type of stuff, or even the whole thing about like don't talk about what you make. Like I feel like that keeps the system in place. So I'll talk about what I make in
Yeah,
in a lot of situations,
yeah.
because then you can be like, "Wait, you're making this, I'm only making this." And I don't know, maybe something can change, but
I I think it's really valuable to have those conversations, and I really appreciate the people who are willing to dig in and like just put some time into working with each other to figure out like, well, what happened here? I mean, like I've had so many talks with musicians where they'll just call me and be like, I need an opinion. I need you to tell me, should I do this or should I do that? Or like, and sometimes they listen to me and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they pick a different solution, and sometimes we're just trying to decide like, should I hire somebody or should I try to do it myself? And I will just give them the pros and cons and let them, but at least they'll have some perspective from somebody, who hopefully they trust.
right. Well, Egg and Dart is coming out June 13th.
Yep.
Yes, it will be out on streaming platforms and everywhere else, and I guess you'll be packing them all up to send out to everybody who bought them, right?
Yeah. Yep.
When's the tour kickoff?
We have one show that we're opening, that's like kind of like a kickoff to the tour in our old hometown of Bloomington, Indiana in early June. It's like at a Kurt Vonnegut festival that they throw, which is pretty cool. And then the tour starts June 19 and basically goes to Thanksgiving. And it's something like 58 shows with like a bunch of our friends' bands coming out with us, like Laura Jane Grace, AJJ, William Elliott Whitmore, J. Roddy Walston, Sean James, and BJ Barham from American Aquarium. And like it's just basically mostly a US tour with a couple Canada shows, and we're flying out for one gig in London. And it was just like we kept adding things at the last minute because there was more interest than we expected. And now we're like, okay, we gotta chill out and not add more shows.
J. Roddy Walston. I was in a band in 2008, and we opened for them. It was like our first show.
Oh
You just
wow.
reminded me. Yeah,
They're
way
good
back.
buddies of ours.
Yeah,
We took
yeah,
them on their first tour in 2008, their first like full tour.
yeah.
Um, and they're just like a killer rock band, and I love those guys.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm looking forward to everybody else hearing Egg and Dart. I love it. It's a fantastic record, and
Thank you.
everybody, if you love Murder by Death, you will love this record. And make sure you
Great.
go see them because this is it. Well, I mean, it's not because we have the cave shows still, but this is going to be like the last big tour.
Yeah, it's
Right?
last time in your town at least.
Yeah. Well, Adam, thanks so much for coming on the show. You know, I've been listening to you a long time. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Great talk.
And there you have it. Adam Turla. Excellent conversation. Really great to catch up with Adam. I have not seen or spoken to him since that 2003 tour. It was Murder by Death. Every Time I Die, I think, was on a piece of that Thursday and This Day Forward, way back in 2003. I remember a lot of Midwest dates. I think some Northeast ones as well. They're out there somewhere. I can't remember exactly, but it was a fun tour. And I always remembered Murder by Death. They are a really unique band. I really enjoyed them then, and I really enjoy them now. So make sure you check out Egg and Dart, their Goodbye record. It comes out this Friday. But yeah, just a great overall conversation with Adam. He has a lot of great insight into the music business. I mean, things have changed a lot. And Adam and Murder by Death have been through a lot in these past 22 years. So it was great getting that story from Adam, and it was great getting all caught up on what Adam and the rest of the band have been up to. And I wish them all the best for the next chapter. So thank you so much, Adam, for coming on the show. So let's check in. How are we doing? I am doing pretty good. Work has calmed down a bit, so I'm happy about that. Went on a little 2-day trip this past week. Haven't done that. Haven't gone on a leisure trip that lasted more than a night since, I think, Furnace Fest 2022. So I went to Asbury Park to catch Sunny Day Real Estate, and that was amazing. I'll be recapping that show in a future episode. Got to see Asbury Park. I don't know if I've ever been there before, but it was great. Did a little sightseeing, drove down to Wildwood the next day. Haven't been there since, I think, 2008. And there's enough of the old Wildwood left on the boardwalk that I was still happy. A lot of those old motels are gone, and it's all condos now, which is kind of sad, but some of the original ones were still there. But it was a real trip being there for the first time in like over 15 years. Had a lot of fun. The boardwalk is still fun. One thing I did back in April was 2 shows in one day. I caught On the Might of Princes and Seisha. Always great to see On the Might of Princes. And this was my first time seeing Seisha. I loved Seisha. I caught about half their set. It was my first time seeing them live, but I left early because I had to catch another show over at Brooklyn Paramount. Teenage Wrist, Better Lovers, Glassjaw, and Poison the Well. Sadly, I missed Teenage Wrist. I really wanted to see them live. I love their 2023 LP, Still Love, so hopefully I'll get to catch them again. After them was Better Lovers. My first time seeing them, great live set. After them was Glassjaw. And this is my first time seeing Glassjaw live, a full set. I caught maybe a quarter of their set at Furnace Fest 2022. But then I ran over to the other side of the fest because I had to see the Get Up Kids. Had never seen them before at all, and that was my first time. So this is the first full Glassjaw set I've seen. Now, when Glassjaw was first touring on Worship and Tribute, they played, I think it was the TLA with Coheed and Cambria. This is way back in 2002. But in classic me fashion at that time, I got too drunk and made a fool of myself in the pit, and then sat outside the venue sick and throwing up for the rest of the night. Missed pretty much all of Glassjaw's set and missed Coheed and Cambria as well. But listen, that's a common story for me at the time. But full Glassjaw set witnessed, and it was amazing. And after Glassjaw was Poison the Well. Always great to see Poison the Well. I love that Vadim has been in the band for a while now. So it's just great to see him doing his thing. This was an opposite of December 25th anniversary show, which is pretty exciting because I still remember when that record came out and what a big deal it was for me and a lot of other people. A real game changer for hardcore at the time. But the good thing about a Poison the Well album anniversary show is they mix in so much other material. It doesn't really feel like an album anniversary show where they just play the entire album and then, tack some songs on at the end. They mix in a lot of the other hits from different albums, and it's just one great overall experience. And shout out to Vadim for getting us into the show and just having us backstage. He's just a great friend. He's been on this show, I don't know, at least 6 times. You can hear plenty of him if you go back into the catalog. But Vadim just always makes a great effort to get you into the show and hang out with you at the show, and it's just always great to see him. He's a very good friend. Great to see you, Vadim, and thank you for everything. We've got some new Spotify and YouTube comments. Let's read those. Matthew Scanlon had this to say about episode 282 with Michael Girard of Swans. Keith did great here. This guy was kind of weird and cagey about everything. And then Reno River had this to say, I can tell you that Michael Girard was quite open on this one, considering past interviews he's done. You can feel he trusted Keith here, and knowing how he can be sometimes, it says a lot. Yeah, that was a challenging episode. There was a fair amount of talk about that one online, some critical of me, some critical of Michael. But here's the thing, you know that we get personal on this show, right? And Michael does not get personal, I learned, on this show while I was interviewing him. And that's okay. I was digging into his past. He didn't want to talk about it, so I switched gears and we started talking about the record, and that's fine. It was a little awkward at times, but I think overall it was a good conversation, and there were some real gems in there of things that Michael said. And on top of that, most of the feedback I read online was positive, whether it be in YouTube comments or Spotify comments or wherever else. So it's a win-win in my book. And here's a new comment about my interview with Don DeVore from Ink and Dagger, episode 270. Fantastic conversation. This was randomly thrown into my YouTube algorithm and I couldn't be happier. I love Ink and Dagger and collected everything from them. Hearing this interview tied up so many loose ends, and Don is such a gem. Can't tell you how long I've waited to hear this interview. This ruled. Thank you so much for that comment. Yes, Ink and Dagger are the best, and I'm so happy that Don came on the show. And I'm so happy that the YouTube algorithm seems to be working in my favor, so let's hope for more of that. But thank you for the comment. I'm really glad you enjoyed the episode, and hopefully you'll stick around and listen to some more. That's about it this week. I've got a lot of great episodes coming up on the podcast. I've been doing a ton of interviews, return guests, brand new guests. There's a lot of good stuff coming up. Warmer weather is back. That's a nice change of pace because it's been really rainy and gloomy here in New York City for what feels like forever now, and the weather makes me tired and kind of depressed, so I'm actually happy about a little more warm weather. It's a nice Sunday afternoon here. I've been listening to my upstairs neighbor walk back and forth and drag stuff across the floor and open and close drawers for the past 2-3 hours now, so hopefully that continues well into the evening. And that's about it. I'm back next week with a return guest and a new guest. Who could it be? Maybe a legendary metallic hardcore act, highly influential in our world of music, who are putting out their first LP in over 20 years. We'll have to wait and see. I'm back next week, and I'll see you then.